Welcome back to the Small Business Show, where you get to hear the journey, find the challenge, and create solutions. I'm your host, Lori Brooks, and I thank you so much for joining me today. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. This week, I have the pleasure of chatting with Alexandra Suchman, CEO and co-founder of Barometer XP, whose mission is to create cultures where people are excited about their work because they feel a strong sense of purpose and belonging. She was 2026 Enterprising Woman of the Year honoree, a finalist for the Metro DC ATD Award for Excellence in Innovative Learning, and has been featured in Forbes and in Kaizen Made Easy Top 9 Leadership Conversations, and is a sought after speaker and thought leader on using play as a tool for organizational effectiveness and employee success. Alexandra, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm delighted to be here. Every time I get to talk to you, I get very excited.
I feel the same. You have such amazing energy, and it's always such a great call. So I am super excited that we've had the chance to reconnect, especially for this episode. So I'm ready to dive into your journeys. Before we do, I want to rewind the clock. I want to go back to a day long before entrepreneurship or change management were part of your vocabulary. I want to know what you thought the future was truly going to look like. What did you think life was going to be like before entrepreneurship became a thing?
I have always been someone who works really hard and, all through school, through high school and college and grad school, was like, you just do everything well and you follow the path. And
Hmm.
once after college, I got a great job and then another great job, and then went to grad school and got a great job and really started moving up within the company that I was working and imagined that I would just keep going in that direction. Um, but as I started to move up and move more into management and then leadership positions, I started realizing I don't do well being part of a dysfunctional system. And fortunately, I had designed my career and sort of shifted my focus so that I was in a position to change the system, and did a lot, but it wasn't my company. There was only so much that
Hmm.
I could change, and because I'm very systems oriented and like make different connections and think about planning for the future, I could see a lot of major problems that were coming up. And I
Hmm.
would warn everybody and say we should do something about it. And it was like, yeah, thank you for noticing. That's great. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. And then the huge problem would happen, and it was like, oh, Alex knows all about this, so she can fix it. And finally, it that just broke me. I was like, I'm working, you know, 70 hours a week. I'm giving up evenings and weekends. I'm not sleeping well. I'm not eating well. I'm not exercising. I'm not seeing my friends. It was
Hmm.
not good for my physical and mental health, which is really surprising because I had that mentality of I've done everything right. I've been a high performer. I go out of my way to do beyond just what's in my job description. And it felt like a really big betrayal that came around and bit me.
I
Um,
bet. I bet.
yeah,
It's funny how we state the path and we all know what that means. It's like this corporate ladder. It's you finish school, you get a good job, you get another good job. And it's this imaginary ladder that I think a lot of us were set up with so early on in life that entrepreneurship is not something we're thinking through. You recognized you had followed the path, you had done everything right, you were doing all of the work and then some. And yet,
yeah.
there was still more that they wanted to add to you. And that's not an uncommon thing in anybody's journey when they're following that path. So I'm curious, what was that moment for you that, as they said, okay, you can fix this. What did you do at that moment? What was that reframe for you? How did you think through those next steps? And what did those next steps truly look like?
I have to give a lot of credit to my husband, because the work I was in, um, I started out my career in public health and health policy. and
Hmm.
was working at a government contractor. I'm in the DC area, a federal government contractor, and started as a researcher and then shifted into organization development and operations
Hmm.
management. They sort of created that role for me because I was really good at putting things together. And a huge part of my job was writing proposals to get additional federal contracts. And because the fiscal year ends September 30th, from May to September every year was the busiest time because on top of all of my normal work, I was producing, writing, overseeing probably 100 proposals. And these are pretty massive. And so every summer, like clockwork, and I love summer. It is my favorite season. I love hot weather. I love being outside. I was miserable.
Hmm.
And finally, my husband, it was the summer of 2016, and he said, "This is a pattern. You are so unhappy. This is the most unhappy I've seen you." And he said, the company needs you a lot more than you need them. You can find other things. He kept saying you need to set better boundaries, but I just didn't feel like it was possible within that job with that company.
Hmm.
And he really encouraged me to think about what I needed for myself. I
Yeah.
was in my mid 30s at that point, and he was like, "Is this what you want your career to look like? You have another couple of decades to be working."
Hmm.
And I said, I finally, the reframe was, I don't know that I will, survive that much longer if I'm working at this pace. I think I'll have some sort of like health crisis.
Hmm.
And that was really hard. I don't like letting people down. I did really like and respect the company that I was working for and the people there and the mission of it. But once I recognized that I could have impact elsewhere and do it in a way that was healthier for me, it was like the scales fell from my eyes. And I had no idea what I was going to do next. I had to just leave and gave myself a couple of months to not do anything
Hmm.
because I had to just get back in touch with what success meant to me because I realized that getting these promotions and getting more responsibility and getting paid more, like at first it felt really good, but then I just got resentful because it's like they're just piling more crap onto me. Like this is what happens when you're good at your job is they torture you with it. And I was like, okay, so that's not success. What does it look like? And I sort of
Okay.
had to redefine and rediscover myself
Mm.
for this, new era in life,
I love
which
that.
was empowering. It was terrifying, but I'm glad I did it.
Taking that breathing room is so unbelievably important to get yourself clear and to redefine what success truly looks like. Kudos to you and kudos to hubby. He's so awesome. Gotta
Yeah,
love him.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
He is truly wonderful and has been so supportive at every step.
It's so important to surround yourself with the right people. So you took that
Yeah.
time, you thought it through. What did those next steps start looking like? Was there a specific moment or, a person that sparked the next steps for you? How did you begin to organize yourself into taking this next journey?
It's funny when I gave myself 3 months to not think about career stuff, just to focus on, getting healthy and whole again. And during that time, I sort of assumed, okay, I'll just find another job, but I'll do a better job at looking into, what's the organizational culture and, defining and having better boundaries. And when that time started and I was doing a lot of networking and trying to meet different people and learn about what different types of jobs were out there, I realized that because I love helping, and to me, success is changing the world for the better in some ways and having an impact. I could see all of the jobs that I was considering and learning about. I could see that pattern starting over. It was is working in places that were very mission and service oriented, that are often very under resourced, that really reward people who dive in and take on a lot. And I said, I don't want this to happen again. And one of the networking events that I was going to, it was called Women in Consulting. It was at a women's co-working and business network in the DC area called Hera Hub. And the first one of those I went to was all these women who had started their own businesses. And I just went to network. I wasn't thinking at all about going into consulting. But by the end of it, I said, I just met all of these women who have totally taken their career into their own hands, who've gotten
Mhm.
real clarity about what makes them special and what makes them feel successful and where they can make a difference. And they built it. And I left it thinking, you know what? I want to try this. If they can do it, why not give it a try? And I had no idea. Interestingly, I do have entrepreneurial parents, but that never occurred to me. It never seemed like something I was going to do. I've never been like, I want to have a business. I actually, it's only been until the last couple of years that I even felt comfortable seeing myself as an entrepreneur because I had such
Mm.
an image in my head of this very, I don't know, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and those people that are just solely driven on like, you know, destroying and rebuilding their image and power and money and it was like I don't that's so not me. um but once I started getting into the work of it, it felt really cool to be like I might be able to do the work that I love to do and
Mhm.
have total control over how much I'm working and who I'm working with and
Mhm.
what my hours are and when I can take vacations and actually going on vacation and not needing to bring my laptop, and that was pretty exciting.
Redefining what that success measure was for you, what it was going to look like. It didn't have to look
Hmm.
like the giant corporations out there. That's not necessarily success for everyone. That level can also bring with it a lot of stress. So,
Hmm.
really defining what success looks like for yourself and for your path is truly important. Do you feel like there was something specific that helped you begin making that definition and start taking those steps to transition and turn your life into what you wanted to see it look like?
Yeah, I mean, finding that Hera Hub community was absolutely pivotal. The
Okay.
woman who had started the DC chapter, Julia Westfall, I, joke that she was my business fairy godmother. But it was this whole community of women who were so eager to help other women. I
Mm.
had never been in that generous and supportive of an environment before, and everybody I met it was like, let's set up a lunch. I'll tell you my story. I'll answer questions.
Oh,
And, these are the books that were most helpful to me. And so I had this community right away that was holding my hand through the process.
I
And,
love
and
that.
that felt really good because I didn't, entrepreneurship can be such an isolating
Mm.
journey. And so
Hmm.
it felt so nice to just have people that I could ask questions to and not feel like, oh, are these going to be stupid questions? And who were so transparent about what they went through, what they're still going
Hmm.
through.
Hmm. No, it's always like, touching once again on surrounding yourself with the right people. It's that community of people that will really help change the trajectory for you. So
Yeah.
I'd love for us to dive into where we are today. I want for you to describe what it is that you actually do with your clients. So when you walk into an organization, what does the typical engagement look like for you? How is it that you're walking your clients through?
The engagements look pretty different, but what the central challenge is, and what we help, in the discovery process, really the central challenge is the team dynamics, the way that people relate to each other at work, and whether it's your peers, whether it's, employer, employee, teams, leadership teams, if the interactions with people are ultimately negative and sort of cause conflict and drain
Mhm.
energy. Work is a truly collaborative process. It has to be.
Mhm.
If you work in a company where there's more than one person, you have to share information. You have
Mhm.
to make decisions together. You have to consider the implications for other people. And I don't think there's enough attention paid to the human experience at work and creating those environments where that type of collaboration and trust can happen. So
Mhm.
that's what we do. We go into companies and we help them better understand each other, better define roles and expectations, build up I hate the term soft skills, but the soft skills so that people feel like they're on a day-to-day basis set up to succeed at work, that they're getting the guidance that they need, that they feel like they belong and that their contributions matter and they have access to the information that they need when they need it and they have the right connections across different departments to break through silos. So I say it's making sure that interpersonal dynamics are an accelerant rather than a hindrance to
You
success.
focus on the interpersonal dynamics that are preventing change from taking hold. So, what are the patterns that you see most often when you're going into the organizations that you feel are contributing most to that dynamic?
Yeah, the pain points present themselves in a few different ways. One are silos, and that's a huge one of just
Hmm.
knowing that a lot of work is being duplicated and a lot of things
Mm,
are falling through the cracks because there just aren't relationships between different teams. Um, Low engagement and high burnout are another one.
mm,
People
hmm,
don't start a job thinking, I want to tune out and do the bare minimum. That's sort of a result of these small day-to-day frustrations
hmm,
that really build up. And if leadership doesn't do anything about those, employees are going to kind of come to the conclusion like, no one really cares if I succeed. I'm just here
hmm,
to be a cog. And
hmm,
that's a pretty horrible mentality.
hmm,
Um, Leaders feeling like they're not getting the performance that they want from their teams. And the first thing to do is to be like, they're not competent or they're not, uh, they're at fault somehow and not think maybe I'm not giving them clear expectations. Maybe I'm not noticing what some of these different challenges they're experiencing are.
hmm.
So a lot of our work is trying to show that culture is part of the operating system. It's not like the work
Yes.
happens over here and culture happens over here. Um, Culture underlies all of it. And so, how do you
Hmm.
operationalize that? And how do you make the default culture something that's going to help people succeed, help businesses grow and thrive and retain people and please their clients, all that good stuff.
I love it. I love how you took where you were, struggling with burnout, frustrated, overwhelmed, recognizing that the dynamics in the space aren't going to help me. And you didn't just decide to define success for yourself and run off and create a journey. You decided to redefine success for yourself by fixing the existing issue that you were dealing with within the office space. You can find ways to spark your journey by solving problems within the situation you're already in, guys. And that's what I thought was so interesting about Alexandra's story. So I thank you so much for explaining to us, precisely where you were, how awesome your hubby is, how the community that you surrounded yourself with the networking group, really helped shape and mold where you came to, what you've
Even
created.
within my entrepreneurial journey, there was another pivoting point because at first I
Hmm.
was doing consulting and was mostly doing the process improvement, organizing infrastructure type things. But the pattern that I noticed was there was always a very real problem. But what was underlying the problem, the root cause was was some sort of team dynamic. These
Hmm.
departments don't talk to each other. There's not enough trust among team members to
Hmm.
have an honest conversation and sort of own up to, what are opportunities for things to get better. It's too easy to just default to like, I do everything perfectly and the rest of you are the problem. Or managers who were really terrible communicators and could not see that they were actually the
Hmm.
common thread between many other problems happening and people not performing. And so I said, there's got to be a way to fix this so people recognize they're part of a system and they have every single person has impact on what the culture is and on how they experience work and how the work gets done. And
Hmm.
unless you start to pay attention to those and take ownership and recognize that there are a million micro decisions that you make every single day that affect the outcomes, nothing was going to get better. And so I shifted from doing more process consulting to the focus on team dynamics and building self-awareness and building uh, these critical dynamic skills. I closed down my first business and then started the second one.
I'm curious if there is a time when something really clicked for a team. So without naming names, without going into like what the team was or specifically, where something really clicked for a team, what that shift looks like for them. So is there
Yeah.
a specific team that so go for
Yeah, absolutely. About a year ago, I worked with a marketing company, a small boutique marketing company
it?
that they're distributed. There's people in the States, there are people overseas, and so most of their work is asynchronous. And they'd had some turnover and that had affected morale some. So they brought us in and the medium that I do the work is facilitation and coaching, but using play-based experiences
Hmm.
as a way for teams to practice how they work together and to get to know each other better and look at some of these interpersonal dynamics. And so with this team, we did a 90-minute just let's get to know each other better. Let's build some trust. Let's showcase the different ways people think and the different skills and perspectives that they bring to problem solving. So those are the types of games that I focused on. And within a few months, the owner called me and said, what happened was she said every single week she had 5 to 7 hours back in her week because people weren't coming to her to work through every problem. By giving them time to reestablish and reinforce their relationships with each other, they realized one, that they liked each other, which meant that they were looking for excuses to work together. They also recognized that there was so much collective wisdom and experience just within the team that they could solve problems together and not have to go to leadership. So they started solving their own problems, which made them more engaged and accountable for their work. And then it went even beyond that, where they were coming up with ideas for how to improve service offerings or how to do things more efficiently that they were bringing to the leadership and were so proud of it. And she said, by 3 or 4 months out, it was a totally different way of operating. And it was sort of collaborate first, ask for ideas, ask for help, admit when something's not going well because it's going to be a positive experience in trying to improve it. And I mean, that just, my heart still swells when I think about that and when I talk with this company because it was such a direct impact of just focusing on relationships and focus on how people
Hmm.
work together.
Definitely. I absolutely love that. I love what you're doing. Thank you for sharing that story because it's funny how the smallest changes can create the largest impact. If you have the ability to go back, say, 10, 15 years before you launched anything, before you and tell yourself one thing, what do you feel like that would be? What do you feel like you would tell yourself when you were in the middle of 70 hours, 70 plus hours a week, and putting yourself through those moments prior to making this shift?
I wish I had known earlier that you can't know where your career is going. Like,
Mm,
and it's not a linear path. It's okay to jump around and do things that are very different. It's okay to, um, to go off the beaten path. And it's okay to take time if you can, afford it, support yourself, to take some time when you feel like a course correction is needed. I think I wanted so badly to know that I was on the perfect trajectory, and that I was doing things right, and things would just continue to happen. And I think if I'd had that different mindset, I could have noticed some of the red flags sooner.
I love that. I love this interview. It's been so exciting for me to have this conversation, to be honest, because it's such a shift from what I normally do in these conversations, especially with this final question, because you are in change management. You are making those changes. You're doing all of the things to change the industry, to make yourself and many, many, many other people experience such joy and such fulfillment in their positions. So kudos to you for doing those things. And thank you for making it so that this time I'm not asking you what you would change if you could change anything. Normally I have this magic wand question, and it's a question that, although I love, I've wanted to change. So instead, we are changing it with your episodes. So thank you for that, Alexandra. And what I want to do is kind of uh, a reframe. I'm curious, what do you feel is the biggest myth that exists about change management?
Oh gosh, I think that it's about the change itself. That if you
Mm,
have a great enough product that you're implementing, or if you think through the process, that that's enough. We are social and emotional creatures. Humans have been for hundreds of thousands of years. And the modern workforce, in a lot of ways, tries to remove the
mm,
emotional reality, the subjective reality of being human from work, and a lot
mm,
of it has this very industrial revolution. Well, and now sort of like the way computer systems work is like you just go and you do this thing, and then this thing happens, and then you're done. um but but people are miserable, and that I think that's largely why people are really miserable
mhm,
and struggling at work. So when I talk about change management, which is something I do speak about at a lot of conferences, it's you have to recognize the emotional experience. You have to meet people where they are. It is the people who are leading and managing the change, it is their responsibility to get buy-in from people early on that there is a problem and that they will benefit from being part of the change. It can't be just forced on people from
mhm,
outside. And yes, that takes longer. And yes, for people who've, gone through, the project management is like, oh, but I've done all these right steps and, implemented this. And even, in like the lean process, which I love, and I think it's a really great approach for change. You have to think about the people side of things. I've started referring to another area of waste in lean as relational waste, of how much inefficiency there is from interactions that are negative. And,
mm,
if people have a conversation and they don't understand what the purpose of it was and nothing gets done, that's wasteful.
right,
If people don't fully understand what's expected of them, and so they can't perform and they get the same feedback over and over, but with no helpful ideas of how to improve, that's wasteful, and it's
mhm,
going to cause more resentment. So for me, I think it's acknowledging that you have to deal with the people side of change. And that has to be maybe even more important than the sort of
Operations.
process and technical solutions piece.
No, agreed 100%. Alexandra, I thank you so much. I thank you for sharing your journey, sharing the stories, sharing the entire experience. This has been an absolutely outstanding episode. So thank you.
It's been such an honor. Thank you.
Of course.